Right now, one of the most famous roads in America is disappearing. Not slowly, not over decades, but all at once. Along California's Big Sur coast, Highway 1, an iconic ribbon of asphalt carved into towering sea cliffs, is collapsing into the Pacific Ocean at multiple points simultaneously. This is not a single landslide. This is not an isolated failure. This is a systemic breakdown stretching across nearly 60 miles of coastline, where the land itself is giving way. More than a dozen collapse points have opened across the Santa Lucia Mountains. Entire sections of road have cracked, tilted, and slid seaward like plates breaking off a table. Guardrails hang in midair. Asphalt folds and buckles. Hillsides that appeared solid days ago are now in motion. Families are trapped. Communities are cut off. And the rain is not stopping. The question facing scientists and emergency officials is no longer whether Highway 1 can be saved. It's whether the entire coastline is destabilizing. What kind of force can tear apart a road that was blasted in 1,000-foot sea cliffs? Why are failures happening all at once instead of one at a time? And why are experts warning that the worst may still be ahead? The first warning signs didn't come from the sky. They came from the ground. Embedded deep beneath Highway 1 are motion sensors installed by Caltrans, devices designed to detect subtle shifts in the earth long before visible damage appears. These sensors track lateral movement, vertical displacement, and shear stress within the slopes supporting the road. During this storm, those sensors began reporting something unprecedented. Movement rates blew past every safety threshold in the system. Engineers monitoring the data in real time watched the numbers climb higher and higher, exceeding anything recorded in decades of observation. At first, there was disbelief. Instruments can fail, data can glitch, but this wasn't noise. The mountains were moving. What made it terrifying was the speed. The sensors didn't show slow, creeping deformation that might allow days or weeks to respond. They showed acceleration, rapid displacement, slopes transitioning from stable to unstable in real time. Emergency protocols were activated across Monterey County. Road crews were rushed out to inspect bridges, retaining walls, and known slide zones. What they found confirmed the data and escalated the situation instantly. Cracks were widening by the hour. Concrete that had held firm for years was splitting along stress lines. Retaining walls were bowing outward. Pavement was pulling apart in jagged seams. The ground beneath the road wasn't just shifting, it was failing. And the sensors had not given them hours. They had given them minutes. What followed unfolded faster than anyone could react. The first major collapse struck near Rocky Creek Bridge. This section of Highway 1 was already scarred by history. Previous landslides had dropped entire lanes into the ocean here, and engineers knew the area was vulnerable. But even with that knowledge, what happened next on them? Within hours of the initial failure, a second collapse opened at Mud Creek. That name carries weight. Mud Creek was the site of one of the most catastrophic landslides in California history. In May 2017, more than 5 million cubic yards of earth came crashing down, burying a quarter mile of Highway 1 beneath debris hundreds of feet thick. The road was gone, entombed under a mountain. That event took 14 months and $54 million to repair. Now, the same mountain was moving again, and it didn't stop there. A third failure followed, then a fourth, then a fifth. Each collapse sent asphalt, steel guardrails, and entire hillsides cascading toward the surf below. From the air, it looked as if the highway was being unzipped, torn open from multiple points at once. The entire corridor from Cambria to Carmel began degrading in sequence. Caltrans issued a full closure order. Big Sur was cut off from the outside world, and the slides were still accelerating. Dozens of vehicles sat frozen in place on a road that no longer existed in either direction. Behind them, fresh mudslides sealed the pavement. Ahead of them, the road simply ended, sheared off at raw cliff edges, plunging hundreds of feet into the ocean. In past Big Sur collapses, as many as 1,600 people have been stranded at once. This event, with failures at multiple locations simultaneously, threatened to trap even more. Rescue teams launched from Monterey as conditions deteriorated. Helicopters attempted to reach stranded motorists and isolated families. But extreme winds, torrential rain, and near-zero visibility pushed pilots beyond safe operating limits. In conditions like these, air rescue becomes the only option. Coast Guard crews flew instrument-only approaches through narrow mountain passes, pulling people from vehicles buried up to their door handles in mud. Each flight was a battle against wind shear, rain bands, and terrain that offered no margin for error. And the storm did not let up. Moisture streamed streamed continuously off the Pacific in thick bands, turning every helicopter mission into a gamble. Visibility collapsed. Fuel margins shrank. Time ran out. On the ground, the scale of destruction was expanding by the hour. Across the Big Sur wilderness, the landscape began to fail in ways that defied comprehension. Near the iconic Nepenthe restaurant, walls of mud more than 40 feet high poured down canyons, obliterating the road's surface entirely. Hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of saturated earth were moving at the same time across multiple drainage systems. In the Ventana wilderness, entire mountainsides released simultaneously. These weren't narrow slides. They were massive debris flows that surged miles downslope, scouring everything in their path. Pfeiffer Big Sur State Park vanished. From air, first responders struggled to recognize it at all. Trails, campgrounds, and creek beds were buried under a featureless expanse of brown slurry so thick it erased all landmarks. What had once been forest, river, and campground became a flat, lifeless plain of mud. But the real cause of this failure wasn't just rain. It was weight. USGS monitoring had long shown that saturated soils are the primary trigger for catastrophic slope collapse along the Big Sur coast. During this event, saturation levels appeared to exceed anything recorded in the modern era for this region. At peak intensity, a single atmospheric river can carry 15 times the water flow of the Mississippi River. And this time, there weren't one, but three. The first storm soaked the ground. The second overwhelmed every drainage system. The third arrived when there was nowhere left for the water to go. The mountains didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because they were overloaded. What no one expected was when this would happen. According to research from the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes at UC San Diego, climate models did not project this intensity of back-to-back atmospheric river events until the 2030s or 2040s. These storms arrived more than a decade early. Jet stream patterns showed disruptions consistent with accelerated warming of Pacific surface waters. That suggests the feedback loop between ocean heat and storm intensity may be compressing timelines faster than models anticipated. The science couldn't keep pace with the damage, and neither could the people living in its path. In a cabin tucked into the redwoods above the old coast road, Elena Vasquez felt the sound change. Rain has a rhythm. Mud is not. What she heard wasn't splashing or dripping. It was a low, grinding roar. Through the kitchen window, she watched the hillside above her home begin to move. Not in a rush, not in a collapse, but steadily, like wet concrete sliding toward the house. She pressed her 3 children against the back wall. The slide stopped 14 feet from the front porch. Mud and shattered trees piled against the propane tank, sealing the only driveway out. Power went out. Cell service vanished. For 36 hours, the family waited in darkness, rationing bottled water and listening as the mountain groaned and shifted around them. We could hear it breathing, Vasquez later told rescuers. When the noise stopped, the silence was worse. No birds, no creek, just the smell of wet earth and broken pine. They were airlifted to a shelter in Monterey, where hundreds of evacuees sat wrapped in blankets, many still wearing mud-caked clothes. The cabin survived. The road to it did not, and the damage was still spreading. Historic institutions that defined Big Sur fell one by one. Deacon's Big Sur and was evacuated. Post Ranch and required emergency helicopter airlifts. The Salem Institute was completely cut off. At Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park, slope failure near McWay, falls reshaped the canyon wall itself. Sediment plumes from the slides spread miles offshore into the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, threatening kelp forests and endangered marine life. And the economy collapsed. Instantly, 0.5 million people travel Highway 1 through Big Sur every year. Tourism is the economy. Without the road, it disappears. Previous closures had already cost the region hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, with the highway destroyed at more than a dozen points, businesses shuttered overnight. Farms were isolated. Dairy shipments stopped. Power and water systems failed. This wasn't just a road collapse. It was the unraveling of modern life along the coast. Scientists now warn this may not be an anomaly, but a preview. USGS has mapped over 1,500 landslides along this stretch. Cliff edges retreat every year. and storms are getting stronger, faster, and closer together. Highway 1 has been closed more than 55 times since it was built. Each disaster broke records. This one broke the timeline. Engineers now face an impossible choice: rebuild and risk losing it again, or accept that the era of a continuous highway may first be ending. The mountain is moving, the ocean is rising, and the road between them is vanishing. If the climate has already outrun the models, what else has it outrun?